In the world of business there are often people who, by their presence, can change the atmosphere in any company. One such person was Jason Hollister, CEO of TechSphere, a large international IT company. He was a middle-aged man with a sturdy build and a slightly tired look, like someone who was used to dealing with problems on the go. His appearance matched his status, a strict suit, always perfectly matched tie and well-groomed hair, carefully styled in the style that was typical of successful people in his circle. But behind the outward image of a successful businessman was a man who valued not only profit and development, but also teamwork. Jason believed that a good atmosphere within the company was the key to success, and that only in such an environment could truly ambitious projects be realized. He was not just a manager, but a mentor and teacher for his employees, always ready to listen to their ideas and suggestions. TechSphere was founded a few years ago and has grown and evolved since then. Jason built the company from the ground up, starting with a small office and a small team of programmers, and achieved worldwide recognition within a few years. However, there was no room for selfishness in his life. He was not a typical boss who sits in his office and gives out instructions. On the contrary, he was always among his employees, knew everyone by name and was interested in their opinions. From his first days on the job, Jason realized that in order to succeed, he needed to build a team that would work as a single unit. This did not mean that all employees should be the same, on the contrary, he valued the individuality of each and believed that this was the strength of the team. It all started with company outings, joint holidays and team-building events. Jason was an advocate of people not only working, but also having the opportunity to relax and socialize outside of the work context. He believed that such activities strengthened team spirit and helped colleagues understand each other better. But there was another side to Jason. He was a man who was used to solving problems without unnecessary words and fuss. He was often strict, especially when it came to deadlines. He had no tolerance for anxiety when it came to professionalism and always set clear goals for his team. With his success and confidence, the TechSphere team gradually began to be perceived as one of the best in the market, and the company became a brand known not only for its innovative products but also for its unique corporate culture. But amidst all this structure and stability, there was one detail that Jason seemed to keep missing. Despite his best efforts to create a unified team, he felt that something was missing in the way he interacted with people. He realized that outwardly the team looked cohesive, but within that whole there were many separate worlds that didn't intersect. Many employees formed their own little communities within the team, and while everyone worked together, there was no real understanding between them. In such an atmosphere, Jason's most important task was not only to grow the company, but also to create an atmosphere of trust and openness, where each employee felt important, not just performing tasks. He dreamed of making each team member feel part of something bigger, not just an employee who makes money and does his job. This became the main goal of all corporate events, to create a team in which people not just work, but live for each other. Thus, despite his status and successes, Jason continued to seek answers to questions regarding team dynamics. He strived to create an atmosphere at TechSphere where each employee could prove themselves not only as a professional, but also as a contributing individual. The day Mary Lawrence walked into the TechSphere office, no one expected her appearance to change much. She was a plain middle-aged woman, with short blonde hair that she apparently didn't style often, and a tired look, like someone who was used to hard work. Mary had joined the company as a janitor, and she was not visible on the lists of important employees, her name did not appear in the corporate reports, and no one knew her face. But all this did not embarrass Mary, because she was used to being out of sight, preferring to work in the shadows. She was cheerful and sincere, but she had a special energy, not like most people. She didn't shy away from her role in the company, didn't try to be someone else, but just did her job with the utmost precision and attention to detail. It was impossible not to notice her determination and firmness in every movement with which she scrubbed the floors or wiped down the hallway tables. It was important to Mary to do everything to the highest standard, no matter what she was cleaning. Her mannerisms were simple, and there was something refreshing about that. She didn't build herself up to be someone important, but at the same time she didn't take on the role of invisible. She didn't pay attention to the reactions of other employees who often looked down on her. She wasn't interested in the opinions of others, she only cared about one thing: getting the job done right. When she arrived at the office, she was greeted by the guard on duty and his look was full of doubt. Mary simply nodded to him and continued on her way towards the large, glass building that was the company's main office. She quickly slipped past the empty offices, past the smiling, chatty employees who were seeing her for the first time and immediately started whispering. Mary wasn't the least bit embarrassed. She wasn't concerned about how she was perceived. All that mattered to her was getting where she needed to go and doing her job. As she approached the office she knew was the principal's office, her stride became a little quicker. This was the moment when she truly felt that she was here for a reason. There was a confidence in her soul that she could make this office better, even if only a little. Her mind was spinning with thoughts of how the world was changing before her eyes, how she had always strived to be of service. It was her calling. Peeking into the room through the small window of the door, she saw a group of employees sitting around a table discussing some issues. Mary wasted no time and entered the office. Her face was open and friendly, but her eyes spoke volumes. She didn't stand timidly at the door like most people in her position. She stepped with confidence, and that was what made her special. She knew she was part of the team, albeit in a different, more humble, but still important capacity. When she entered the principal's office, all eyes turned to her. Jason Hollister, sitting behind his huge desk, looked up. He was slightly surprised to see the janitor, who entered without knocking or apologizing, as if she was not the new girl in the place, but an old friend. She approached his desk and, without slowing her pace, said, "Good afternoon, I've come to work." Mary Lawrence, the janitor. Jason looked at her with slight surprise, but smiled restrainedly. There was an appraisal in his eyes, but it was neutral. It was a normal meeting, nothing out of the ordinary. "Nice to meet you," he replied, raising an eyebrow slightly. "They're waiting for you in the cleaning department. But you can talk to my secretary. I see you have some important questions." Mary looked at him with a slight grin, as if she knew what to say. Her confidence was undeniable. "Nothing important," she answered. "I just thought that if I cleaned here, it would be easier for me to understand what it would take to work with you. For now, I just want to get started." Her words weren't empty. Jason noticed that her tone lacked the usual modesty or shyness common to most newcomers. She sounded like she was sure that her job at this company was important. That immediately caught his eye, but his surprise quickly passed and he smiled. He realized that he was not just another cleaning lady, but a person with a certain inner core. Mary began her work, and soon everyone noticed her. She did not seek to attract attention, but she did her work with such care and attention that no one could fail to notice. She left no trace of haste behind her, her movements were measured and deliberate, and every step she took was filled with some special meaning. There was something marvelous in her simplicity. This was not just a cleaner, this was a person who had built a career for herself without relying on other means. And, although there were many people in the office who were engaged in higher endeavors, Mary, with her cheerfulness and unpretentiousness, attracted attention. As she scrubbed the floors in the hallway, her gaze was focused, and at one point she noticed Jason's secretary, Emily, walking by with an arrogant expression on her face. Emily was a girl who was always proud of her position, always making sure that all of her coworkers knew that she was the boss's right-hand woman. She was a professional at what she did, but her manner with others was often irritating. Mary looked at her with mild interest but didn't jump to any conclusions. She knew that every position in the company had its value, and that even a cleaning lady could do more than met the eye. And while Emily clearly considered herself an important figure in the company, Mary didn't care. She was focused on her business. In the evening, when everyone had gone home, Mary stayed in the office and continued her work. It was her way of showing that she was prepared for any hardship. When Mary Lawrence got a job as a janitor at TechSphere, she didn't think that her personal qualities would have such a big impact on the team. She was always sure that she had to be honest and straightforward no matter what was going on, and this quality led to an interesting and unexpected turn of events. But for starters, it was her straightforwardness and lack of attention to corporate norms that led to resentment from her coworkers and even more so to serious condemnation from the higher-ups in the company, especially Jason Hollister's secretary, Emily. Mary realized that her status was far from high. She was just a janitor whose presence in the office wasn't necessarily meant to attract attention. But she couldn't afford to pretend to be someone she wasn't. She didn't see fit to follow the corporate dress code or manners that were often important in companies like this. For example, her shirt that she wore every day wasn't made of expensive material like everyone else's. She did not wear the type of shoes that would be accepted among the employees, preferring comfortable shoes that allowed her to work quickly and easily. When Mary first walked into the office in the morning, she was unaccustomed to seeing all the strict suits and expensive accessories that surrounded her at every turn. Emily, as always, looked impeccable. Her suit fit perfectly and her hair was so neat that it could be called a benchmark for others. She always wore a clutch, and her look was such that it was immediately clear that she was not just a secretary, but an important and irreplaceable element of the company. But Mary couldn't help but notice how her gaze had crossed Emily's as she entered the office that first day. The secretary didn't hide her contempt, and her look of arrogance said, "You don't belong here." Mary took it as an everyday occurrence. She was too busy to pay attention to people like Emily and decided to keep her mood light. She just continued to do her job as she always did, focused and responsible. But things took a turn for the worse when Mary, not understanding the ins and outs of corporate ethics, took part in a conversation that was going on between a group of employees, including Emily. It happened when Mary was trying to bring a cup of coffee to one of the meeting rooms, but seeing the informal atmosphere in the hallway, she decided to stop and just relax sitting at the table where all the employees usually sit. Emily, noticing Mary, who was sitting in the lunch area, immediately cast a disapproving glance at her and said loudly, "Mary, can you please go back to your seat? This is no place for you to rest. We're having important meetings here, not cleaning lady breaks." Mary, although a little embarrassed by the remark, did not keep quiet. She calmly raised her head and replied, "I'm here to take a little break, not to do any talking. I just came to sit for a while. If you don't like it, that's your problem, not mine." This conversation caused a certain amount of condemnation in the collective. Emily obviously expected Mary, as an inferior employee, to just walk away and not cross her, but Mary wasn't like that. She perceived the situation in her own way, and her refusal to apologize or leave her seat seemed like a challenge. For most of the company's employees, this straightforward approach was unusual and even strange. Word quickly spread about how Mary had responded to Emily. Someone whispered that she clearly didn't realize that her place was a corner in the office, not participating in conversations between more important people. Someone said that her behavior was simply inappropriate, and that she should focus more on how she conducted herself in the company rather than trying to impose her view on things. However, despite the condemnation from most of his co-workers, Jason Hollister noticed Mary at that moment. He happened to be in the hallway walking by and saw the scene. He stopped, overheard the conversation and, without showing any emotion on his face, looked at Mary carefully. She didn't try to justify herself, didn't feel guilty, and didn't even seem to notice that those around her were judging her. Jason was a man who always appreciated forthrightness and determination. He was pleased that Mary didn't hide her point of view or try to adjust to anyone's expectations. At that moment, he thought there was something special about her. She didn't follow corporate rules, and that was partly intimidating, but also attractive. At this point Jason decided that he needed to talk to Mary. He realized that her forthrightness and independence could be both an advantage and a problem for the company. He decided that perhaps she needed mentoring and he should give her a little more attention than he expected. Later, in a meeting to discuss work processes, Jason couldn't help but notice how the employees began to notice Mary's unusual behavior. They were all discussing her reactions, and while most were judging her, a few began to respect her for her independence. There was something about this that at one point began to get Jason's own attention. When he called her into his office, he didn't know what to expect. He knew that Mary wouldn't follow the standards that everyone else considered the norm, but it interested him. At some point he realized that her unconventional approach could play an important role in the company, and he wanted to understand her better. Mary Lawrence gradually began to realize that her place at TechSphere was far from as clear-cut as she had initially thought. Despite her determination and defiance, despite her confidence that her view of the world and her role in the company was the right one, she couldn't help but feel the eyes of others on her. It wasn't just a feeling, it was a reality that she experienced every day as she walked through the corridors of the company. Mary had always been convinced that her work mattered. She didn't think she needed to be anyone else to earn respect. But at TechSphere, where everyone is focused on career advancement and strict corporate rules, her independence and inattention to other people's opinions became stumbling blocks. Every day she felt more and more that she didn't belong to this world, that she was like an unnoticeable, alien part in this huge mechanism. As Mary walked through the office, she felt the stares of her colleagues, which often turned into outright condemnation. Their whispers, their looks of displeasure, had become familiar to her. Emily's secretary, who was not shy about showing her disdain for her simple and, in her opinion, inappropriate style, did not hide her arrogance. Every time she passed by, Emily couldn't help but snort or glance disdainfully at Mary. Sometimes she even allowed herself to whisper something under her co-workers' noses, and though Mary couldn't hear, she could feel her glances, feel how those around her perceived her as something alien to the world. Mary was not alone in her experiences. She often felt her loneliness deepening with each passing day. There was a growing feeling in her soul that she did not belong here, that her efforts and endeavors did not matter in this strict and closed world of corporate norms. She sat in her little corner, forever lost among people who never seemed to notice her. Her days were similar to each other. She would arrive at the office in the morning, put her bag in her corner and start doing her work. She would scrub the floors, clean the desks, wipe the windows, trying to do her best. But her efforts were not appreciated. She didn't feel grateful, didn't feel that her work was important. It was hard for her because she had always been a person for whom work was a way to show her worth, a way to be useful. But at TechSphere, her efforts went unnoticed. She often reminisced about her life before she got a job here. She remembered working somewhere else, in another city, where her labor was appreciated, where she was respected. But that experience was behind her, and now that she was here, Mary felt isolated, lost in a vast world of corporate structures where she was neither expected nor sought after. She was just part of the machinery, nothing more. Her inner world became more and more closed and confined. Mary often sat alone in the lunch area, trying not to attract attention. She avoided socializing with coworkers, didn't seek support. But deep inside her emotions were simmering. She often thought about how she could change her life, how she could achieve something more. But she didn't know where to start. There was no room in her world for someone like her. And it was in these moments of loneliness that she found herself thinking more and more of her younger sister, Marina. Marina was more than just a sister to Mary. She was her support, her ray of light on dark days. Mary always tried to support Marina, to inspire her to do better, dreaming of a better future for her. Marina was the youngest, but Mary always felt that she had a lot to take care of her sister. She was like a mother to her, like a mentor. In her eyes, Marina was what would change their lives. Her dream of a better future was centered on her. Mary often thought about Marina, how she had gone to school, how she had aspired to be a doctor, how she had tried to go to university. Mary knew that for Marina, this was her chance to choose her path in life. She wished that her sister could have everything she dreamed of. Mary realized that she had to help her get there. She tried to support her, to give her advice, to try to explain how important it was not to give up, even if she had to struggle with difficulties. It was because of Marina that Mary could not give up. She couldn't let herself give up because she knew her sister needed her support. Her life was dedicated to this person, and even if she couldn't reach great heights herself, her dream was to help Marina become the person she wanted to be. Mary often thought about how one day she would be able to afford to buy her sister the gift of a beautiful dress she had dreamed of for so long. Marina was a girl who loved beauty and dreamed of elegant clothes, but Mary could never afford to buy her anything expensive. her life didn't allow her to spend money on such things. But she believed that one day, if she worked hard enough, she would be able to give Marina the dress that she dreamed of. She thought about how happy her sister would be when she received the gift, and how her eyes would sparkle with happiness. Her dreams of a better future for her sister were her strength. Even though Mary felt isolated in that office, even though her work wasn't appreciated, she kept going. She knew that someday, perhaps, things would change. She couldn't give up. Even though her inner world was full of doubts and disappointments, she continued to believe that everything would be okay. As she walked down the hallway, her gaze was fixed on nothing. Sometimes her heart would clench with loneliness, and she would think about how maybe one day she could change her life. But right now, at this point, her focus was on helping Marina. And that gave her the strength to move forward. Mary never expected that her life at TechSphere would be changed by a chance encounter with a dog. But it was a pivotal moment that completely changed her status and the way she was treated not only by her co-workers, but also by Jason Hollister himself. In that hot summer week, when work went on as usual and every day was similar to the previous one, she could not have guessed that her routine day would become an event that would be remembered by everyone. The dog appeared suddenly. The office was usually quiet. TechSphere was located in an upscale business district of the city, and emergencies rarely happened here. Even when something did happen, it was usually related to business, negotiations, projects, and new proposals. That day, however, everything was different. Mary had just finished cleaning one of the rooms when she noticed strange activity outside. The hum of cars, the voices of people, something was wrong. She quickly went to the window and saw a group of employees, including the company director, standing at the entrance. At first Mary didn't pay attention, but then she noticed everyone gathered around a little boy who seemed to be standing in alarm. It was Jason Hollister's son, Kalenka, whom she had previously seen several times in the office. He often came with his father, but then he wasn't as attached to his work duties. The boy looked restless, and there were people gathered around him, clearly concerned about something. All of this caught her attention and she headed towards the exit. When Mary got closer, she saw that Kalenka was next to a stray dog that had somehow ended up in the office complex. The dog looked aggressive, its fur was standing up and its eyes were glaring. People stood around in panic, but no one could get close as the animal was clearly hostile. At that moment, something happened that no one expected. The dog, feeling threatened, lunged at the boy, and in an instant he was in danger. Screams and panic gripped the group of people. Jason's secretary Emily screamed, other employees stepped back, afraid that the dog might attack them. Kalenka, despite his fear, had no time to run away and was in immediate danger. Mary, who was standing aside, instantly realized that she must act, and without a second's hesitation ran to the boy. She was certain that she must act quickly, or the consequences might be fatal. Mary was not afraid of the dog, her only thought was to save Kalenka. She sprang toward the animal and pushed it away with great effort, trying to keep the dog from getting too close to the boy. The dog, growling, tried to claw at her, and for a moment Mary felt the animal's teeth clamp down on her leg. The pain pierced her, but she did not let go of Kalenka. The dog growled, trying to attack, but at that moment Jason appeared, the first to notice what had happened. He quickly ran over to them, jumping up to the dog and using a stick to push it away. He was able to drive the animal away. Mary, in spite of the pain, continued to hold the boy and protected him to the very end. When the dog retreated, she saw that Kalenka was safe, but her leg was bloody from the bite. At that moment, when all was quiet, Jason Hollister looked at Mary with wonder and admiration. He couldn't help but notice her determination, her bravery, and her willingness to put her life on the line for his son's safety. It was a moment that changed the way he looked at her, and he realized that this woman was not like the rest of them. "Thank you, Mary," he said as he walked over to her and gently placed his hand on her shoulder. "You saved my son." Mary, though she felt the pain, made no complaint. Her only desire was to make sure the boy was safe. She felt her body trembling slightly from the stress she had experienced, but she tried to hide it. She smiled at Jason, but didn't say anything. Words weren't needed at this point, her actions spoke for themselves. Jason Hollister was stunned by what he saw. He realized that this woman was more than just a cleaner. She possessed the qualities he valued in people: determination, courage, a willingness to take risks for others. He sensed there was more to Mary than he realized. Although she wasn't part of his elite team, her behavior made him think. He knew such qualities were valued in life, but they were completely foreign to the society she worked in. He was sure she deserved better than that. "Mary, you did a wonderful job," he said, already calming down. "I'll need to take you to the hospital to have your wounds checked." "That's not necessary, I'm fine," she replied, trying to hide her fatigue and pain. "The important thing is that Kalenka is okay." Jason insisted, however, and he personally drove Mary to the hospital to get her the medical attention she needed. He was silent during the ride, but his gaze spoke volumes. He thought about how her act had changed his perception of her as a person. He began to realize that her decision to stay and risk it for his son wasn't just instinct. It was a manifestation of her character, a quality rarely found in such mundane places as office cubicles. After Mary was seen by the doctors, Jason suggested that she return to the office. He also informed her that a meeting would be held about her action to recognize her bravery and reward her appropriately. In this, he was determined. He knew that Mary's act deserved to be recognized and that her place at TechSphere needed to change. The next day, back in the office, Mary felt the atmosphere around her change. Her coworkers began to treat her differently. Even though she was still a janitor, her status was no longer the same. The coworkers began to look at her more respectfully, and some even started asking for help. Even Emily, who had previously despised her, now nodded at her with respect. Mary felt her determination and courage beginning to pay off. Jason, following through on his promise, invited her into his office and offered her not only a promotion, but also the opportunity for training to grow within the company. He offered her the opportunity to become part of the team, not as a janitor, but as a key employee who could contribute to the success of the company. This was a big moment for Mary. Her life at TechSphere had changed. A moment that started as a normal day at work became a pivotal moment that opened up new opportunities and perspectives for her. Although her journey was just beginning, she knew that her place in this company would now be defined not by her role, but by her actions, her character, and her determination. After Mary saved Jason Hollister's son from a dog attack, her life at TechSphere truly changed. But the change wasn't instantaneous or easy. At first glance, it seemed like she had gotten everything she could have dreamed of: respect from her colleagues, recognition, and even a promoted position. But behind the outward signs of change was a real struggle, both physical and psychological. The incident with the dog left not only physical wounds, but also deep inner feelings, which Mary tried to hide from others. When she was bitten by the dog, she, like any person in such a situation, experienced intense pain. But at that moment, Mary didn't think about her condition. The only thing she was concerned about was the boy's safety. When the dog retreated and she found herself next to Jason, her heart was pounding with fear and pain, but she tried not to show it. She said that everything was fine, that she didn't need to be taken to the hospital, that the important thing was that Kalenka was okay. But the physical pain was unbearable. Mary stayed in the office for several hours, continuing to work, but every step she took was difficult. As she walked down the hallways, she had to pause to catch her breath and calm down. The pain from the bite was so intense that she could feel her body tense, as if in constant stress. She didn't want to be pitted, so she didn't tell anyone about her agony. Nevertheless, Jason noticed her condition. The next time he saw her in the hallway, he couldn't help but notice that Mary was moving in obvious pain. He stopped and approached her, asking her to come into his office. Mary tried to assure him that she was fine, but Jason insisted that she sit down. He invited her to sit down, and as he looked at her flushed face and tense body, he realized that she wasn't just overcome with physical pain, but was hiding much more from him. "Mary," Jason said with a softness in his voice that she had never heard before. "You can't keep working if your wounds aren't healing. I understand your determination, but you need to take care of yourself." Her eyes grew moist from finally admitting her weakness. Mary had always believed that she should be strong, that she didn't need to ask for help. But, as each day passed, her inner tension grew, and Jason was the first person to notice it. She felt that her efforts were not going unnoticed. "I need some time," she said, struggling with her emotions. "I can't afford to be weak." Jason looked at her, realizing that her resilience wasn't a simple show of strength, but rather an internal struggle. He suggested that she take the day off to recover and not overwhelm herself. It wasn't just a suggestion, it was a gesture of support that Mary hadn't felt in so long. She declined verbally, but there was gratitude in her eyes. Over the next few days she continued to work, but Jason periodically approached her to make sure she was okay. He knew, of course, that she was having a hard time and was willing to help. He understood that it was important for her not to show her vulnerability, but he was worried about her himself. He began to notice her behavior changing. She was becoming more withdrawn, smiling less and less often, and seemed to be more and more immersed in her thoughts. Mary tried to deal with the pain as best she could. She often locked herself in the restroom to avoid showing her wounds to her coworkers, avoided talking, and tried to work more to avoid thinking about what was happening to her. But every time she passed Jason, her gaze met his and she felt like he could see her pain. He probably didn't know all of her experiences, but he knew she was having a hard time. One day when Mary complained strongly again about the pain in her leg and couldn't continue working, Jason insisted that she go to the doctor. He had organized her trip to the hospital himself and even insisted that she undergo a full examination. It was the first time she allowed herself to be weak and accepted help. At the hospital, it was discovered that the bite wound was deep and she had to undergo a course of treatment, including injections and antibiotic therapy. Mary, although grateful for the attention, felt her pride holding her back from fully accepting help. However, Jason was there for her in this moment. He supported her, not allowing her to shut down. Not only did he insist on medical attention, but he asked her to take time to recover. When Mary returned to the office after a few days off, she was perceived differently. Her co-workers began to treat her with respect, and her status in the company changed. But the changes were not only about her professional role, but also about her personal experiences. She began to realize that being strong doesn't mean being alone. Sometimes you have to allow yourself a little weakness to move forward, only to come back even stronger later. Jason was the person who helped her see that. He continued to support her despite her resistance and persistently reminded her of her value as a person and as a professional. She felt his genuine care and support, which was a real eye-opener for her. It was more than just a professional relationship, it was the genuine human attention she had been looking for so long. As Mary began to recover, her relationship with Jason grew closer and closer. She couldn't figure out what it was that attracted her to him, whether it was his determination, his attention, or his confidence, but she began to trust him like never before. Jason, for his part, began to appreciate her courage and resilience more and more. He not only admired what she had done, but he saw her not just as the woman who had saved his son, but as a person capable of overcoming adversity. At that moment, Mary realized that her place in the company was no accident. Her hard work, her determination and her inner strength allowed her to gain not only recognition, but also the support that became a real pillar for her. Every day she became more confident and her worries and pain gradually faded into the past, leaving room for new opportunities and new accomplishments. Several months passed after the event when Mary Lawrence saved her son Jason Hollister from a dog attack. She continued to work at TechSphere, but her place in the company was already very different. The status she received after the incident was just the beginning. Mary was no longer just a janitor. Her attitude towards her coworkers, her eagerness and inner strength, which had manifested itself the day she saved Kalenka, were the very qualities that could not go unnoticed. Even so, her life in the office remained difficult and stressful, for although her colleagues had begun to treat her with respect, she still felt out of place. Her place in the office was between two worlds. On the one hand, she was still perceived as a newcomer, someone who came to the company in the wrong status to apply for important projects or to negotiate. On the other hand, She heard more and more words of gratitude and respect, which gave her moral satisfaction. But the inner feeling that she was out of place did not disappear. It was a struggle between her desires and reality. Her ambitions were much higher than her current role, and she realized that she couldn't stay at the level of a cleaning lady. Jason Hollister also knew it was time for a change. He could no longer ignore the fact that Mary wasn't just a woman who happened to be a random part of the company. He saw something more in her. Courage, determination, coping skills, it all spoke to her strength of character and ability to be a leader if given the chance. But he wasn't sure if she was ready for it. He didn't know how she would take the change he was about to propose. An important moment for the company had arrived. Jason was preparing for important negotiations with potential partners that could affect the future of TechSphere. The negotiations promised to be intense, and everyone involved had an important role to play. But when Emily, Jason's secretary, suddenly fell ill and couldn't attend, Jason immediately realized that someone else could take her place. But who? He thought of Mary. She wasn't a secretary, and it was unlikely that any of her coworkers would understand his decision. But he had long ago noticed her ability to handle situations quickly, her straightforwardness, her self-confidence, and at the same time her attention to detail. Those were qualities Jason appreciated. It was at that moment that he realized it was time to not only make a move that would recognize her merit, but also open up new horizons for her. He decided to offer Mary a unique opportunity that could be a real chance for her to advance. He called her into his office and offered to fill in for the secretary at an important meeting. It was an offer that many might consider strange. But to Jason, it was a show of respect for her and her potential. He knew it wouldn't be an easy step for her, but he believed she could handle it. "Mary, I need you to fill in for Emily at the partner negotiations," he said as he sat down at his desk. "I realize this may come as a surprise to you, but I'm sure you can handle it." Mary looked at him in surprise, not sure what he meant. She wasn't sure if she was ready for this step. She wasn't a secretary, and her role in the company, though it had changed, was still modest. "Jason, I don't know," she said, feeling confused. "I don't have any experience with this kind of negotiation." "You don't have to be a secretary to negotiate. You just have to be attentive and ready for the task. You've shown your ability to handle difficult situations. I'm sure you can be a great helper in the meeting." Mary felt her heart beat faster. She was silent for a long time, thinking about his words. It was both exciting and frightening at the same time. But deep down she knew it was a chance she couldn't pass up. "Okay, I'll do it. But I need a little preparation," she said, determination in her voice. Jason smiled as he watched her face slowly fill with confidence. He knew that this was not just an offer, but a challenge for her, an opportunity to fulfill her potential. The negotiation had gone well, and Mary had handled it surprisingly well. She was organized, attentive, helped Jason with the paperwork, kept track of the meeting, and navigated the questions and answers correctly. Jason was impressed with her professionalism. He realized that her tireless determination, her abilities, and even her independence made her an important part of the process. After the successful meeting, Jason invited Mary into his office. He was pleased and proud of the way she had handled it. "Mary, I want to say thank you," he began as she entered his office. "You've done a terrific job. I never doubted that you could do it." Mary stood in front of him, feeling her face redden slightly at his words. She wasn't used to such praise, and her heart was beating faster and faster. She only smiled, but inside her emotions were bubbling up. "Thank you, Jason. I'm glad I could help. Didn't think I'd ever be in this position. You've not only helped, you've shown that you deserve more than just a cleaning job. I want to offer you a place on my team," he said, firmly. "You deserve it." Mary was stunned. This wasn't just a promotion offer. This was a move that would completely change her life. She thought everything would stay the same, but Jason was opening up a new reality for her. A reality where she was valued for her professional qualities, not her role in the office. Jason. I don't know what to say. This is more than I ever expected, she said, unable to hide the wave of emotion. Jason stepped closer to her and spoke softly but firmly. Mary, you've earned your place on the team. I don't just want to offer you a professional promotion. I want you to become a part of my life. You're not just an employee to me, you're the person I want to share not only my business but my life with. Mary felt her heart skip a few beats. She couldn't believe she was hearing this. Jason, her boss, the man who had shown her so much care and support, was saying those words. It was unexpected, it was just unbelievable. Jason, I didn't know you felt this way, she whispered, unable to hide her feelings. I feel like you're the person I need, he said, wrapping his arms around her. You are important to me not only as a colleague, but also as a woman. I want you to be a part of my life. That moment was a turning point. Everything that had happened before had led to a real connection between them. The romantic feelings that had been building up day by day finally found their place. It was not only a professional success, but the beginning of a new life for Mary. A life where she wasn't just a cleaning lady, but a complete person who deserved love, respect, and happiness. Jason and Mary became not only work partners, but life partners. Their story ended on a positive note, combining professionalism with real, sincere feelings. It wasn't just a random twist, it was the beginning of a new path, a path they were ready to walk together, hand in hand. After all the experiences, Mary Lawrence was no longer the same woman who had come to TechSphere a few months earlier. She was no longer just a janitor hiding her pain and vulnerability behind a mask of resilience. Mary had gained recognition, respect, and most importantly, an understanding of her value not only as an employee, but as a person. She went through many challenges that helped her to open up not only to others, but also to herself. With each passing day, Mary became more and more confident in herself. Her work at TechSphere was completely redefined. Jason Hollister, who had once seen her as a janitor, was now her partner and mentor. He entrusted her with critical projects, gave her the opportunity to be part of a team, and proved that in life you should never be limited by the boundaries and expectations of others. Mary discovered a new world, a world where she could be someone more than just a shadow of office life. She began working with other department heads, participating in discussions and strategy sessions, and her view of the business became much broader and more multifaceted. Working side by side with people who had previously looked at her as the bottom rung of the corporate ladder, Mary finally realized that all along she was much stronger and wiser than she had thought. However, the most important change that happened to Mary was that she finally felt respected and recognized. She was no longer trying to conform to other people's expectations, she was just being herself. And, most importantly, she realized that no one has the right to judge people based solely on their appearance or social status. Her own path became a confirmation of the fact that it is not the status assigned to you that matters, but your actions, your inner world, your efforts and aspirations. The new path that opened before Mary was full of possibilities. She no longer felt that her place in the office was limited to the role of a cleaner. She became part of a team, part of something bigger. Her drive to succeed, her honesty, her willpower, that's what made her an important figure to the company. Jason, who used to be her supervisor, now became her partner and their relationship grew into something more than just professional. This moment was the culmination of her journey at TechSphere. Mary stopped looking at her life as a place where she had to settle for little. She learned to value herself, and this led to a huge change in both her career and personal life. When Mary looked back on all the milestones she had passed, she realized that her success was not simply the result of luck or Jason's favor. It was her own determination to become a better person, to not give up in the face of adversity and to not let circumstances define who she should be. She learned from her mistakes, from the hardships and from the moments of doubt that had overcome her at the beginning of her journey. She realized that in life, obstacles are often encountered, but true strength is the ability to overcome them and move forward. The moral Mary learned from all of these experiences was simple but profound: don't judge people by appearance or social status. Appearances and status can be deceiving. A person can be a hidden source of strength, ready to reveal themselves and show what they are capable of if given the chance. What matters is not the labels we give each other, but the qualities that shape us as individuals. What matters is not how others see us, but how we see ourselves and what steps we are willing to take to change our destiny. Mary was now more confident than ever that her place at TechSphere was well deserved. She was taking on new challenges and was not afraid to meet challenges. There were no more doubts, no more fear of judgment. She was ready to move forward, optimistic about the future and reaching new heights. For Jason, a lot had changed as well. He realized that Mary was not just the woman who had saved his son, but a true colleague and partner. He saw in her not only a professional, but also a person he could trust, with whom he could build a future, not only in business, but also in his personal life. Their relationship grew stronger and they found in each other support, love and mutual respect. Mary Lawrence's story became an example for everyone in the company. It was a lesson in the importance of not judging people by their role in society, how they look or where they came from. A person's true worth is revealed through their actions, aspirations, hard work and willingness to fight for their dreams. Mary, having traveled this path, proved to everyone that in order to change one's destiny, one must not be afraid to take risks, believe in oneself and be ready for new opportunities. And for everyone who has ever doubted themselves, her story is a reminder that the biggest changes happen when we stop limiting ourselves to other people's expectations and start believing in our own strength. After all, everyone deserves to be seen for what they truly represent. Thank you for walking this journey with the characters in this story. I hope this story about the power of family, forgiveness, and new beginnings has inspired you and reminded you of the importance of support and love even in the most difficult times. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to leave your impressions and comments. Your thoughts and feedback are very important and inspire new stories. Subscribe and give your likes so you don't miss new stories. I apologize for any errors in the text. Thank you for your understanding and support.